I wanted to sit down with just like, we have amazing conversation in here anyway, with just like when we're not making music. So I thought, why don't we just like whack a camera on and reason?
People are sick of having their leg pissed on and being told it's raining.
Everyone I know is just got issue with the way the BBC presents certain things. And again, back to Palestine, is very transparent. Like there's no argument here.
Per fatality, Israeli deaths get 33 times more coverage than Palestinian deaths.
Yeah.
Doing what feels safe and doing what makes you feel empowered are often two really different things.
Yeah.
I can't sit here and say if you do that, there's going to be zero consequences for you. We've seen what the consequences have been like with Gary fucking Lineker.
Yeah. If someone gets killed, murdered, there's like a certain amount of funding that gets given to the youth club. If you gave the funding that they need for the projects, then we might not get the murder, if you know what I'm saying.
100%.
In the Steeze Factory now.
Steeze Factory sayings, you know who this guy is. If you've seen Steeze Factory, he's all over your screen. Deli OneFourz, artist, fashion icon, youth worker, many pseudonyms, and someone who's joining us today who I've been watching via social media who's become a hero of mine. I just asked her name. She said, Ash Sarkar like marker. Right?
Sarkar like marker.
Sarkar like marker in the Steeze Factory. Come on, noise and vibration. Legend. Yep. I asked you yesterday via text if an alien landed in the world and you had to tell them who you were and what you did. You said, I'm a journalist that hates the media.
Yeah.
And I think that is a very relatable phrase, not just for people in here, but around the world right now. And I'm so grateful you exist so I can receive information that makes sense. So who are you? Like, what's your background and like, how have you ended up in that space, like highlighting these things?
So like, I never wanted to be a journalist. I thought, okay, I'll do my degree. And then I did my master's and I was really interested in writing about rap music, actually. I loved writing about it and loved the art form and wanted to take it seriously, not just as performance, but as a way of writing and as a way of thinking about the world. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And I was just like working in a pub and sort of kicking my heels a bit. And meanwhile, two friends of mine had co-founded a media organisation called Novara Media, which was political, it was from the left, and it was dedicated to telling stories and sharing an analysis that like you would not find anywhere else. Crazy stuff, like maybe by making poor people poorer, you're not going to actually make a country richer. Insane stuff.
Yeah.
And because I'd known them from being politically active when I was younger, like when I started uni, I was just always on at them being like, oh, you need to cover this and you haven't done this, and like slowly wore them down to the like, well, do you want to come on and do something? So we started out as volunteers. Like all of us had different jobs while we were trying to build this organization. So I worked in a pub, Aaron worked selling fruit and veg like at a market stall, James was doing just like bits of editing here and there, and slowly we got enough in terms of paying supporters that we could pay our contributors, and then we could pay other staff, and then finally we could pay ourselves. And now we employ like 25 people.
So what's the name of the network that you run and work for?
Novara Media.
Novara Media, incredible. And it's in a day and age of where like there is so much information available, there's pillar stones, I think, for people that they trust and believe in, and that is definitely one that I consume and believe.
It means the world to hear that.
Yeah, which is kind of funny to say out loud. I believe something like, but that's how mad it's got. So give thanks for creating that.
No, I mean, like, it's so incredible to hear it. And it's like, I mean, I really admire everything that you've done, particularly with shining a light on how the music industry has functioned and tried to close down on political dissent. Because it takes a lot of bravery to do it, because so many people are scared about what the repercussions are going to be for themselves. For me, I feel like, well, I work with my friends and I work with my comrades, and I feel so held and loved by them and protected by them that it feels like, yeah, we can just do this thing. Whereas actually for people to put their head above the parapet in other industries, that's the bit where I go, that's what takes real guts.
Yeah. I mean, one of the ethos of this room was to create my own world, because I don't like the world that I was in the music industry. Its default exploitation of art is like, I don't need to go on about that. And I had a few penny drop moments of like, this just doesn't work. Even for me, when like I'm speaking from an uber privileged place here. Look, it doesn't work for me, let alone the new kid who they've discovered. And so I wanted to create my own space that I could like create in and share and bypass that thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what you've done with your channel and how you speak, it's like the alternative too. And don't get me wrong, financially at times it's scary because I'm not relying on that system that feeds. How do you survive as a channel?
So we are almost entirely funded just from our supporters.
Amazing.
So more than 3/4 of it comes from paying supporters. We don't have a paywall because we think news should be free, right? It's a human right. You will have a right to understand what's going on in the world. But if we create a product that you have faith in and you trust, you will want to pay for it. And you're not just paying for yourself, you're paying for the person who can't dip into their pocket at this time. So about 75% comes directly from paying supporters. Then we've got another portion which comes from YouTube ad revenue, super chats, stuff like that. And then a small percentage from merch and events.
Oh, cool.
Nothing from billionaires, nothing from venture capital, no SponCon. And it gives us the editorial freedom because we're not scared of one right-wing rich guy being like, I don't like what you're saying, you have to change it, otherwise
Yeah.
Basically, you built it from like your cult followers, basically.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
But from the community, for the community. Deli, you do a lot of youth work.
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
And youth clubs getting shut down
Yeah.
here, there and everywhere. How's the hustle to keep them open?
Obviously, like, I think it was like 14, 15 years ago is when Westminster, I can't speak of any other borough, they basically closed funding. So if you were a youth club who were dependent on funding from government, when this happened, your youth club had to shut. So now, obviously, youth clubs every youth club or majority of youth clubs in Westminster have to like basically go out and seek funding from different organisations, different charities. So it's a lot tighter. There's not as much youth workers as there was before, which means that the youth have nowhere to go, which means that they find other stuff to do.
And that's what we're seeing in tuition right now.
Literally.
And they can't afford to pay someone like yourself to...
Yeah, so obviously if there's no funding to pay youth workers or specialists or people that take part in projects to do with youth, then you're not going to have anyone there to do it, which means that if you don't have a football club for Lee, who's 18, then Lee's going to find something else to do, and which is outside. And if Lee grows up in the area where I live in, then there's only a couple options left for Lee to do. So, yeah, big up all the youth clubs that's still running and found funding.
Also, it's such a false economy because the government was like, okay, we're going to save money by cutting youth club provision. What that does is that it creates really expensive problems down the line because your example of like the kid who can't find a football team, so he gets pulled into something where either it harms himself, could harm someone else. And that is so expensive for the state to deal
100%.
with. And you see it because my mum worked in child protection. She's retired now, but she works in child protection. And she saw that false economy come in again and again. So she'd get, say, a parent come to her and say, look, I'm single mom to 2 boys. They're basically being groomed by gangs. And they're going to have a choice where either they have to join for their own protection or something bad's going to happen to them. Please, can you give us some support? Please, could you rehouse us? Something like that. And because the state went, well, we don't have enough money to deal with this and your case isn't serious enough, we're going to leave it. And then something terrible happens.
Exactly.
And the state has to intervene and it costs 10 times more.
That's what I was just about to say, because there's been situations in the past where, like say for the youth club that I work in, it's like deep within the area. So if anything happens within the area or someone that attends the youth club, then they give out a certain amount of money for, I know it's horrible to say that, if someone gets killed, murdered, there's like a certain amount of funding that gets given to the youth club. Or if someone gets stabbed, there's a certain fund. But if you gave the funding that they need for the projects, then we might not get the murder, if you get what I'm saying. Because you get 20, I don't know if it's 20 or 30, 20 to 25 grand if like a murder happened within the area to the youth club. Well, you get that when someone's been killed. But if you gave the 20 to 25 grand for like funding or projects
prevention
to prevent it, then we won't get the murder, if you get what I'm saying.
Totally,
so it's a bit crazy. And obviously they do know what's happening because obviously the youth workers and the people from the community, like myself and other staff and other community members, do write letters and try to seek funding, but obviously you know how hard it is to get funding to do something that they don't think is going to get funding back.
Do you want to know something really, really fucked up?
Of course.
So the guy who wrote the speeches for David Cameron, advocating for state spending to be cut, and he called it the big society. So he said, well, if you cut state funding, all these other people are going to step into the space. He wrote all the speeches advocating for state funding to be cut. And then he was the chair of these private enterprises, which then got paid by councils, by, the London mayoralty to run programs for disadvantaged youth. So he says, okay, the state can't run this program, but my company is going to profit from the fact that the state's no longer going to do it.
Yeah, so it's stuff like that. Literally.
So it's poverty profit. Yeah. Literally. It's mad because in here, there's beautiful people pass through all the time and they come from different walks of life, but there's this thing that's unified right now, which this kind of wealth divide is affecting people differently, whether it's from people like yourself having to literally go and get funding to open a door for a young person, someone like yourself who has to lobby together to get money to tell the truth. I'm not a prime example, but it feels like a unified energy no matter what your ethnicity is, almost your class is really, and your political statement of this just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's been happening for years. It's not working. And I think, obviously, the Palestine thing, the trauma and the what's the word, demonic, the devilishness of that event is like a massive, massive version of similar things we express day to day. And I think that's one of the reasons people are rallying behind it, because it's sadly bigger than the genocide. It paints a picture of what a youth club goes through, or a news company goes through.
It's like a bigger, wider version.
It's a wider version, and I think that's why so many people are lobbying behind it. I think for me, my dad's been very outside for Palestine 15 years, and I never really they've been mum and dad. That's their whole being. Anti-apartheid, early memories of South Africa flag in my window, had to take it down at night. Anti-Nazi, all these things, mindless strikes, all these things. It's my existence. But for me, the Palestine thing was always there, but it wasn't until the Coachella moment with Kneecap that everything hit home. And the reason was because these guys, we work in here, we made this music. Nothing had changed from the minute I met them to that moment. They were the same people. But someone somewhere went, no, switch. Yeah. And that terrified me. And it also made me realise how powerful the system tries to be when it wants to be. Yeah. And knowing them personally was scary. Knowing my dad's fight for that country, it kind of moulded me into put my lens on it, expressing how I feel about it, fighting for them, but also zooming out on the bigger picture of society.
It's happening at this level, which is huge. I mean, obviously, Kneecap have become, a kind of international sensation because of the stances that they've taken, particularly on Palestine. And I think what they've done is so important because they've not just made the music and made the statements, but they've opened up a space for people to express that sentiment. And I was interviewing Blind Boy, who's a podcaster and an artist and a writer. One of the things that he said is that it's created a space of protest. So the concert's become a protest, and that's why people want to clamp down on it. And so it's happening at that level, but it's also happening at this really, really micro level within individual workplaces. I can give you an example, which is fucking insane, which is there's this thing called the Francis Crick Institute. It's a big scientific institution near King's Cross. And some of the researchers wanted to do a bake sale to raise money for medical aid for Palestinians, and I think the British Red Cross as well. And then HR got all these complaints from others in the organisation saying, it's made us feel threatened. This could be seen as, anti-Semitic or pro-Hamas. And they refer to it as an allegedly peaceful bake sale, which is one of the best phrases I've ever had in my life. An allegedly peaceful bake sale. And so then the leadership of the institute comes in and says, all right, no more bake sales raising money for Palestine. We're not going to have, bake sales raising money for any country or cause anymore. But when it came to Ukraine, the whole leadership had said, let's kick in for charities, let's show our solidarity, blah, 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 blah. So it's even at this tiny micro level of I just want to run a bake sale.
Yeah.
That system is kicking in.
Yeah. Every layer. I mean, like I say, that off switch I've never seen happen to anyone. I see it micro all the time. All the time. Yeah. But that literal, someone went, whoop, was mental. And it was a lot closer to home than I expected. The music industry, certain aspects of it are very pro-Israel. Yeah. And people that I know and have worked with were members of this elite that tried to stop them going to Glastonbury and performing their art thus for the message of free Palestine. And it's a 1 degree of separation. It wasn't like a politician or like an army man. It was people that I've worked with. And it was frightening, but it was also like the defrosting of the system is happening in front of us, you know what I mean? And that's why I feel like it can relate to, you know, funds to the youth system, healthcare. Like all these things are coming to fruition. There's like amazing people like Ash, who was one of the reasons I always get there, who are part of this bigger thing. And I think like it's like a rallying of people together that have a similar ideology, but we can't do it by ourselves. We can't. So it needs to be music, media, sport, like everything and everyone. The problem is that I'm feeling in my surroundings is everyone's too scared to talk because of these examples made. Now, actually, someone who your job is to talk very well. How can we kind of like encourage people to talk up in a way that they would feel safe but also empowered?
I mean, the thing is, doing what feels safe and doing what makes you feel empowered are often two really different things.
Yeah.
I was talking to someone who's like very famous musician, and I know what their politics are, you know, because I've known them personally a little bit. So I said, like, look, mate, like if anyone can speak out, it should be you. And he was like, I'm just too afraid to take this on. And I don't think less of him as a person, and I can understand how you get there. But a part of me felt a sense of pity because I was like, well, because you're being hemmed in by this fear, you actually don't know who you can be. And there is a kind of connection you could have with people who enjoy your music, which might be deeper, which might be richer, which could be more nourishing had you done this thing which feels really scary. I can't sit here and say if you do that, there's going to be zero consequences for you. We've seen what the consequences have been like for Kneecap. We've seen what the consequences have been like for Bob Dylan. We've seen what the consequences have been like for Gary fucking Lineker.
Yeah.
All right, a man so squeaky clean, he was on the Crisp advert.
Yeah.
I mean,
The epitome of British pride.
like he's not exactly like, you know, leader of the Hamas military wing, right?
Quite far there.
And we've seen what's happened to people like him. So I can't promise that it's going to be cost-free for people. But at no point in history has it ever been cost-free to speak up. Like whether, you know, for your parents with the anti-apartheid movement, I mean, like my mom got like arrested for sitting in for South Africa House. You know, these things came at a cost for people. So I don't think that you can, if your expectation is to speak out but feel safe, it's not going to happen.
It's a myth, yeah.
It's not going to happen.
So I guess that leads to like your personal need, want, or experience of what you're trying to achieve. Because I can't tell my famous friend that what you're doing is not right by being silent. I'm conflicted, if I'm honest, within myself, because the community that I am from and represent comes from marginalised art. All this is from pain and trauma. And a lot of us aren't from those spaces. Do you get what I'm saying? We're all white, we're all middle class, and we just make money off this world that we don't, it's not exchange. I just go back to that world a lot of time. You know what it's like.
Yeah, of course.
And I just feel like right now the most burning community and voiceless community needs our voice like never before. And it just, I guess, it upsets me that like people that I have been alongside, I don't see it through that lens or are too shook to do it because the system has gotten muted.
I think when it comes to this thing of like, you know, it feels like a privilege to tell people to speak up. It's always worth remembering that actually sometimes it's been the people who've had nothing, who've put everything on the line for a cause. I mean, like, you think about the history of the anti-racist movement in this country. Was it led by super duper posh people who were really, really rich? No, it was led by working class communities in this country. And one of the things which I think has changed a bit in recent years is that we sort of see it as like a middle class, university educated thing, but like that's not where it came from. And those artists who wanted to break the boycott on South Africa, apartheid South Africa back in the day, they weren't all working class artists. A lot of them were doing pretty damn well for themselves. And there are artists who had, say, more to gain for themselves by breaking the boycott, said, no, we're going to hold the line out of a sense of solidarity. So I think it's also about it's always a mistake to think that solidarity comes from privilege, because I think that actually solidarity, it emerges from where people need each other in order to survive, and they understand that all we have is each other, because the system is not built for us. It's not going to protect us.
Yeah, fact. I mean, that comes back to communal spaces like a youth club, and when all those things are being zapped out of society, it can feel like one, rather than we.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Years ago, when I was younger, we used to go everywhere for youth club, and because of that, it meant that we made new friends in different areas.
Yeah.
Now, like my nephew, my nephew's big, my little cousin who's like 16, he won't go to another area youth club because there might be quarrels between our area and his.
Yeah.
But back in the day, 10, 20, 15 years ago, we were going Edgware Road, we were going Northwest, we were going all over the place for youth clubs. And because of that, we were able to network and socialise with different people from different areas. But because there's not as many youth clubs and there's so much more quarrelling and war, people are not venturing out.
Well, it colorates, doesn't it? So the lack of those spaces creates these problems. That's what we said to earlier.
Basically.
So you could, when you was younger, because you would spit different sounds and different, you could go here, there, anywhere. And now your younger cousin can't.
Yeah.
It didn't happen overnight, this, did it?
No, this is probably about, like, when I was younger, the area that I live in now has quarrels with an area which is 5-10 minutes away.
Yeah. Because when I was growing up, it used to be Tottenham versus Hackney, and now it's Tottenham versus Wood Green.
Yeah, it's right there. Like, literally, the area that my area has war with, if I look out my window, I can see one of the blocks. That's how close it is.
Yeah.
Like,
It's your neighbours?
Yeah. Back in the day when I grew up, I was more in the other area.
Yeah.
Because we was allowed to go. Not saying they're not allowed to go in there now, but back in the day, it was 5-10 minutes. If they got a youth club down there, we're going to go through and see what's good. But now, that's definitely not how it works. Definitely not how it works.
Crazy the impact that social media has had on this as well, because it promises to connect you to the rest of the world, but in another way, it makes your world so small.
100%.
And makes tiny conflicts. So like between like Tottenham and Wood Green, where it's like the boundary between those two areas is like one road.
One road. Yeah.
Like, you know, it makes those things seem so huge. And I think that, you know, you can see that in so many different ways, which is, here's this thing which has been designed by like billionaire psychopaths in Silicon Valley. And the impact it's having on all of us is that it's making us isolated, suspicious, afraid, prone to like snap reactions. And it's degrading social connection between people.
Totally. It's funny, and it's called social media, but unfortunately it feels like it had a reverse effect a lot of the time. Particularly when you're like, for example, some of your work, you've got to record young people spitting, right? Yeah. And then naturally they're going to want to share it with the world, right?
100%. There's been times when, like, obviously because it's a youth club, if it was a private session, then it would be different. But as it's a youth club, some of the stuff that they're able to speak about, obviously, it's kind of radio limited. You can't come in a youth club and say this up or that. You can't.
Yeah. There's a duty of care within that.
You know what I mean? So obviously having the project, like, for example, some people that do speak that language, I know because I've seen you grow up, I can tell who's actually living the life. But another thing, some kids feel because they're doing this type of music, they kind of have to speak about that. And then I kind of have to break it down to say, like, I see you every day walking on road. You are not a thing you spoke about. And then their response is, no, but it's, I don't want to say the genre, but it's that, innit?
Yeah.
And they feel like, because it's that, that's how they need to speak.
Yeah.
And it's crazy.
Is that new, or is that something which has always been the case? Like, I don't want to say the name of the person, but like there was a particular garage group where like it kind of felt that there was an image and then they had to live the life to live up to that particular image. And so even though it hadn't necessarily come from that background, and it's like, your mum's a head teacher. What are you doing? But like, you create the painting and then you go, I've got to change so that it look like that. Yeah.
I think but I just can't believe that they believe that they have to act the way they're speaking in the music, because it's like, they can't believe that. Well, I don't know. Now I'm confused because I'm thinking, do they believe that the rappers that they're listening to are doing everything that they're saying in the track?
Well, it's also like a question of why is there not another version of that expression that is popular? All right, let's talk the music industry, my favourite, worst place. It's the major label system is all on commerce. It's full commerce. They talk about culture, they talk about, it's commerce, it's profit and it's market share. So even if something doesn't profit, if they've got a part of that system, their market share goes up. So it's even if they're losing on a record, they've got it right. Their formula will set from trends. And in rap music in Britain, not so much now, but there was a period of time when the music that was reacting to youth culture and due to the society and conditions these rappers were in was very, very violent. Right, and I have no qualms with someone saying their reality. None at all. In fact, I really encourage it. It's your palette to paint. But naturally, if that is deemed commerce, then the lens of that will take that and they don't even know what it is.
Amplify it.
So if I'm a young person and I'm seeing my community music only work from that lens of that more violent side, you might think that that's the only option.
100%.
And it comes back to capitalism, isn't it?
Literally.
And the system just investing in what will make them money without any other care. And what I've always had a bit of an internal battle with in that world that I was in was that a lot of the time the finance doesn't go back to the same community.
That's fact.
So like your youth club who's struggling to stay alive.
Literally, because exactly what you said is exactly what's happening. So obviously there are people that do live what they write about.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Because of the community that they live in.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Obviously, label, distribute, amplify it to the world so everyone can see. And now little Darren from Ashmore, who's got both parents and living happily, he believes that if he's going to do that type of music, he needs to speak about living that life when...
The lack of alternative for me in that world for a while, I think it's switching a little bit now, was really quite telling on how things can be amplified, even in entertainment, let alone media and news.
I mean, there's also, like with music, there's a sort of doubleness to it. Because like on the one hand, going, okay, I need to find a way to make money and I need to make my art something that can reach this bigger audience. That can be a driver of creativity. But on the other hand, the minute it becomes a commodity and it's like, well, you have to replicate this. And as you said, like it amplifies a particular image and it says you have to replicate this again and again and again. It closes down that space for actually pushing the art form forward. And I'm going to sound like an old lady. Like I'm in my auntie era now, so I'm allowed.
Fine, we'll embrace that.
I'm like, kids these days. But seriously, kids these days. Grime was the genre which, for me, it felt like an alien spaceship had landed and it was brand new. And I was hearing things which I hadn't heard before because it was so London and it was so UK and it was so detached from American styles of rapping, American styles of making music. And what people, I think, often forget about, especially some of that, early work coming from, whether it was Wiley or Dizzy Rascal or anyone else, is that there was a slight silliness and a sense of fun and playfulness and drawing from so many different kinds of influence, which would also include things like football chanting. And when the part which was more to do with violence, not only does that become a moral panic in the newspapers, are like, oh my God, but it also becomes so commercially successful. All that room for play, all that creativity that came from like, okay, well, we're young, no one's told us that we can't do it this way, so we're gonna do this way. Like that sort of falls by the wayside, and I really miss it. I really miss that element of it.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot, like grime lot back in the day, because they would do anything to stick out. My man, what is that? Bloody brilliant, that's what it is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's amazing.
All the little hooks everyone had up, and then it became a bit more filtered to like actually fit in rather than stand out.
Yeah.
Do you not think?
Brody was like the Lost Boys to me. It was like the Lost Boys from Peter Pan. That's how they sounded.
Yeah, totally.
I remember, I think years ago when we were first coming up, there used to be a grime set on one big block in Northwest. Like now, I don't even want I couldn't go to this block now because there's all sorts of stuff happening. But back in the day when grime was happening, we were invited. I brought 2 friends who weren't even from the area. Obviously, there's a lot of guys on the block. Obviously, they loved me. They knew about me. I got one of my guys to spit. Immediately, there was tension, but because they didn't know about him. But because he was good at grime, at the beginning, they were like, look, he's this prayer. But because he was so good, they ended up wheeling him up and giving him a round of applause. And that was grime, innit? Now, if we was in that position, I don't know what would have happened. I
society.
wouldn't have gone with him now.
And I
Do you get?
I think it's made the art form weaker. And like, again, this is just like what happens, right? You turn 30 and the only music that sounds good to you is what you were listening to when you were teens, right? Yeah. So like, take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt. But I feel that there's something about the dexterity and the technique isn't quite there anymore, because maybe you're not having those different people come and who are pushing you as an artist and making you think, shit, I've got to get better at this. Because I was listening to the Scars remix again, because it's one of the first times that you hear Skepta, because he'd been producing before.
Yeah.
And
then he starts spitting,
Yeah, and his style really changes because there's like a raspiness that you don't hear anymore. But one of the things which was really striking about that for me was when you hear Wiley going through all the different voices he can do. Like, it was just like, and you don't hear that variety.
Right,
Sticking out, isn't it? Again, I mean, I think, you know, the way social settings create art, or like that type of vibe where you can't go to the block, like it mutes collaboration and expression. And it's along with the youth clubs, along with you can't say that on stage, along with all these things, and why we should and have to create our own spaces. Now, we're all lucky, we're older, we're a lot statistically safer than a young person, so we don't need it as much as the youngers. But we're doing it anyway. Yeah. That you've created your own platform, youth club, studio, all these things, whereas the young ones are just sort of like roaming around, probably feeling very unsafe with the lack of infrastructure behind them.
I live on a different planet to people I live next door to. And I think about that all the time, which is I live in Tottenham and I love Tottenham so much. It's the cradle of civilization, in my view, best place in the world. But I also realise that my experience of it is so shaped by my gender, my class status, right? I'm university educated, I've got a middle class profession, my ethnicity and my age. And so the experiences that some of these young guys in particular are going to be having, and they can be walking right next to me on the pavement.
That's true.
We live in different dimensions in the same place.
It's incredible, isn't it? I think, like, I'm from Sheffield, right? So it's like, it's smaller geographically, but it also feels less segregated. So the communities are a bit more intertwined. But at the same time, there's communities in Sheffield, right, that you go down one road and you go into a block or an estate and it's like, that's the world, right? And if you're born in that world, it's really hard to see out of that lens. London's strange to me because you could live on the block, but you cross the road and there's a flat white shop, Gucci. And there's this there's an aspiration and you can see what is kind of possible, even if it's really, really, really hard to achieve. Whereas Sheffield is like, in my experience, certain communities, it's very hopeless. That leads into like no one speaking on their behalf. That leads to politics and people pry on that. Yeah. For example, what Reform are doing at the minute, feeling hopeless and lost. And I always find it interesting, the difference between London and somewhere like Sheffield or Birmingham and stuff. And like the aspiration for so many people out of London is invisible.
Yeah. I mean, it's completely... So my husband is also from South Yorkshire. He's from... I'm married in.
Welcome.
So he's civilised me. He's introduced me to the joys of chips with gravy. I'm a different one. He's from a small town near Barnsley, and like his small town, like, you know, you go to the next one and it's really different. You go to the next one, it's really different. But like one of the things that he says, and he's just like, you know, sometimes when I'm speaking in generalizations, and he's just like, Ash, like, you grew up in London, like, you've got no idea what it's like to just have no investment whatsoever. No. Just like nothing. Yeah. Like, you guys had austerity, you had things which like closed down. For us, all the things that we had, which were associated with the mining industry, the mills, you know, the trade union movement, all of that got ripped out in the 80s and it never came back. Yeah. And so my brother-in-law, who lives in a town between like Leeds and Huddersfield, he works in a factory. It's a skilled machinist job. It is one of the few factories of that kind which still exists and is fully unionised. What that means is if he ever left his job and he wanted to do the same thing somewhere else, he'd take a 20 grand pay cut automatically. Yeah. And in London, you sometimes feel, you know, you can feel overwhelmed sometimes, and you can feel invisible in the city and you can feel lost. But there is always the sense of possibility. There's the sense of like, you don't know who you're going to meet, you don't know who you're going to encounter, and it's like liquid, right? And it moves quickly. Whereas if you're from where my brother-in-law has stayed, and he's like, okay, well, I hold on to this job or I take this like plummeting pay cut, right? I feel stuck here, like because my circumstances have trapped me here because all the other jobs that are left are like the Amazon warehouse ones.
Yeah.
And it's a totally different experience of what deprivation is, of how opportunity works or doesn't. You know, and there are beautiful things about living there, like, you know, your access to nature in the countryside is like, it's a gorgeous thing about, like, you know, still living in Yorkshire, but the way in which your options are limited by the fact that the jobs aren't there.
Yeah. It's even just like, for me, like music, like in London, it's like one extra's in town.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? AG's outside King's Cross. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Sheffield. You know, I like, it's like we create our own hubs and it's beautiful and the community is tight. We're the best, but it's like you have to get the train. And you have to have connections that you, like in London, you grow up with people that might be 2 degrees of separation. And that's beautiful, you know. But there's multiple layers to it. But I feel like, you know, your youth club, which is incredible, and you would play an incredible role, is like it has access to people in the community that could fund it or use whatever. I just think like somewhere like, again, Barnsley, Doncaster, like the opportunity for funding alone is really tough. And I just feel like, because I'm here and I see here, I can sometimes forget the reality of these spaces and the access. And as things become more like Amazon warehousey and, you know, less government funded, like what's the point where it hits like choke point and it's just not, physically can't work anymore? Because I feel like we're heading that way anyway.
Yeah, I mean, so like the one thing which like pisses me off every time I think about it is that local authorities, which were poorer, got their funding cuts like 6 times more. They were like worse off 6 times more. So the places with the most need had some of the worst budget cuts. And so you think about how that creates a perfect storm of like, again, all these expensive problems just piling up. And it had an impact on people's health. So there's this researcher called Michael Marmot, and he released a report a few years ago. And what he found is that your life expectancy literally shortened because of austerity. And the gap between, you know, the life expectancy in the richest areas versus the poorest areas is sometimes as big as 20 years. And you see it. You see it when you're walking around places which have experienced high levels of deprivation and lack of opportunity for a long time. And you can see that the hospital is in a fucking state. And you can see it in people's bodies. It's matched by the statistics in terms of, you know, chronic illnesses, disabilities, and all the rest of it. And again, it's like, you know, the way in which the media will try and present this to you is like the driest statistics. Right. And it doesn't meet people where they're at. And it also doesn't tell the truth about, you know, it is mapped on your body. You will feel it in your body if you have grown up in this area and you've been abandoned by the state.
Being poor is expensive. Yeah, literally. So the mainstream media and the BBC, I think more so the BBC, someone told me the other day, was it created after World War II?
The BBC was before World War II, but it evolved over time in terms of what it was meant to do. So the BBC was meant to serve a function of like educating the British population, but it was also meant to project British power across its colonies. And so it's always had this kind of uncomfortable hybrid thing of, on the one hand, it's supposed to raise everyone up here, but on the other, it's supposed to play this dominating function as well.
Yeah, because I never saw of it through that lens, because obviously we've grown up with the Beeb, and it's like, it's our identity, it's the BBC. And when I go abroad, if I mention that, it's like, when I was on the Beeb, it was like, oh, he's from the BBC. Actually, funny story, right? I went to Tyler, the Creator's got a festival in America called the Odd Future Carnival. I went there in 2010 or something, and I got to the front door, and I was door of the festival, and I was there to interview Tyler, the Creator, and report on this incredible thing. And I went to the guy, I was like, hi, remember what you said, we're here from the BBC. And he was like, no problem. And he turned around and he goes, yo, we got some dudes here from Billionaire Boys Club. And it was like, them American guys were like, it didn't land on them, which I thought was brilliant and super humbling to me. Then I had to go and interview Tyler, the Creator, which was super nerve-wracking. Conversation for a different day. Point being is, yes, it does create this like empire image, right? And it made sense to me now recently why a lot of us see the narrative of it for a specific type of lens rather than for all of we. So like everyone I know is just got issue with the way the BBC presents certain things, and the again back to Palestine is very transparent. Like there's no argument here. Is the BBC designed, do you think now, to project what the government wants to do?
I mean, the short answer is like, yes, kind of. So the first thing is that when it comes to Palestine, you can measure the bias. So there was a report put out by the Centre for Media Monitoring. And what they found is per fatality, Israeli deaths get 33 times more coverage than Palestinian deaths.
Yeah.
And not only that, the language used for Israeli deaths is completely different. It's a lot more emotive. The words like barbarous or massacre or horrifying. The way in which journalists present it, quite rightly, is to stimulate an emotion in you. Whereas for Palestinians, there's the use of the passive voice. So they're never, killed or murdered. They've died somehow.
Yeah.
Palestinians die after bomb explodes. It's like a classic sentence construction. It's like, well, who dropped the bomb? Did it just appear out of nowhere? And using very neutral language, very unemotive language. And I think it's one of the things that ties this whole conversation together is that people are sick of having their leg pissed on and being told it's raining. Right? like everyone is sick to the hind teeth of it, which is, we can see the truth. We're not idiots. And you're telling us it's something else. And so when it comes to the BBC, if you've got social media, you've seen the images of parents collecting the body parts of their children. You've seen, for me, there's something about when old people, granddads and grandmas are reduced to tears like children because they're so hungry. There's something about that which it really upsets me in a very particular way. And there's also the fact that there are so many toddlers, babies being admitted to hospital with sniper wounds to the head and the chest. And a sniper is a precision weapon, and a headshot or a chest shot is, you've meant to do that. Mm-hmm. People can see this stuff. And so then when the BBC is being caught up in all of these confected scandals about why did you broadcast Bob Dylan, or, why did you broadcast the kneecap set, or why have you commissioned a documentary about the experience of children in this war zone? And all of the conversation in the mainstream media is, you're not sympathetic to Israel enough. You're biased against Israel. When we know that the BBC's bias is in favour of Israel, again, pissing on the leg, telling us it's raining, and the loss of faith that generates in the BBC is really quite astonishing to see. The reason why this is happening is because the BBC is not accountable to its audience. It's not. It's accountable to the government, who are in control of the Royal Charter renewal process, and it means that they sort of hang a sword over the BBC's funding. So the BBC is very vulnerable to what the government of the day wants it to do.
So if the agenda of the government is obviously not here to help Palestinian people, then they will select the way that they cover it.
And everyone's scared of the Israel lobby.
Yeah.
Everyone is scared of it because, one, they fund politicians, right? They thousands and thousands of pounds. At least in the States, they give millions, right? Our politicians, you buy them so cheap. Like £6 in
Come to Nando's, Corbyn!
It's like £6 in the curly whirly will get you Lisa.
Come on, you up your price.
Up your price.
No, for real.
But they're scared of losing the funding. They're scared of being seen to be anti-Semitic, and the way in which that story is being told. Of course, anti-Semitism is real, and it's disgusting, and we have to fight it. But what's happening is that criticism of Israel is being called anti-Semitic. Yeah. And so then when you've got, very well-connected Israeli lobbyists who've got very good connections to the rest of the media, the BBC is scared of other newspapers calling them anti-Semitic. Yeah. So then they self-censor.
I read this thing in paper the other day about, because they get so much from both sides, that they just rather not talk about it. It's almost like, let's just forget about it, which... I mean, look, I worked for BBC for 12 years, and my colleagues were beautiful. Do you know what I mean? Target, Annie, all the... it's the top of the triangle we're talking about here. It's not the day-to-day staff. It's the people who, and I think that's quite important to vocalise because my colleagues were beautiful. There's something in there that has just like made me lose complete trust in it. And it's sad really because again, you know, when I go abroad, hey, BBC, it felt like a bit of British pride, the BBC. But to me, sadly, it's kind of gone with this whole thing.
But like Robbie Gibb, who is on the BBC board, he's very, very influential. You know, he's known to be very sympathetic towards Israel. He has also been part of a buyout of the Jewish Chronicle, which obviously you would expect to be a very, very heavily pro-Israel newspaper. Not only is it very, very heavily pro-Israel newspaper, it's also been a part of running these stories on finding people within the BBC who they say aren't impartial enough.
Yeah.
So you've got this board member who also helped buy out a newspaper which is running anti-BBC stories. How do you think that's working?
I mean, there's no impartiality there, though, is there? At all. Like, that's like having like a judge who hates gay people about a gay thing or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, it's gutting, man. I think, yeah, I mean, the Labour Party, I mean, don't get me started on that one. That was they were my guys. I can never support them again after this.
Yeah.
I just can't. I can't back someone that I've backed and my community's backed that is just letting this happen. I feel like this could be a reset.
But for me, it was a bit before that. It was a little bit before the genocide. And it was when Angela Rayner said, she was on stage with this, by the way, there's no greater oxymoron than political comedian, all right? Like all of them are just like these like boring centrist farts who are like, you know, oh, poor people stupid. And that's all they do. So she was on stage with like one of them. And she was like, this might make me unpopular, but I believe shoot terrorists first, ask questions later. Obviously, if there is a marauding terrorist situation, shoot to kill is a sensible policy. But when you say shoot first, ask questions later, there are some really important questions like, was that person innocent?
Yeah.
Did they do the things that you said that they'd done?
Yeah.
Because I remember when John Charles de Menezes was killed after the 7/7 bombings, right? He was a Brazilian electrician who was pursued by police. He was scared, he ran, and they shot him dead. I also, and being from Tottenham, this case is obviously very close to my heart, was what happened around the police killing of Mark Duggan. Now, I agree with, there's an organisation called Forensic Architecture who said that the police case doesn't make sense because they say he had a gun that he threw over some railings, it was found some distance away, but apparently no one saw him throw the gun, no one saw him do it. So you're surrounded by police, there are witnesses, no one sees you throw the gun. The forensic architecture suggestion is that it was a police plant. I happen to believe that case. So when Angela Rayner says shoot first, ask questions later, I think about what about those people who are almost always black and brown, who didn't get the benefit of the doubt. Not only that, the worst was assumed about them, they paid for it with their lives. And so lots of people would go, well, what do you want her to say? Well, actually, I kind of want a politician to say that due process is important and the law matters and police officers won't just enforce the law, they'll have to uphold it themselves as well. You know, so for me, it was a bit before the genocide.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's sad, it's gone for a bit, but it's a funny one because, like, I don't know where my tribe is now. Yeah. Like, and again, it's part of this defrosting to me that I keep cracking on about. So much has come off the back of this last few months for me that has just like opened the curtain on the reality. And in a way, it's super sad that it took all these things to happen. But that this is the time to mobilise and change, and young people like yourself are like at the forefront of it, and that's one of the reasons I've wanted you here today.
Being called young is the nicest.
No, all right. Donald Trump is 78 or something, brother. You get what I'm saying? He's the leader of the free world, right? Yeah. Better than my great granddad. Do you know what I mean? And it's like the young people that are the people that are going to mobilise, and they're not often listened to. Like I see people on the news, like yourself or Fiona or whatever, and there's just these old people just shouting over them like they don't know what they're on about, when actually their lived existence is more relevant than ever because they're living in this moment. And like I feel like that is what that change comes from the generation that it's born into and affects.
I think so. I mean, like, you know, you must feel this way as well, which is like, I turned 18 in 2010. Right. So this is 2 years after the global financial crisis, which means if you weren't middle class then, you weren't going to be. The social mobility train has stopped and like it's not moving anymore.
Yeah, but if you work hard enough, you will be.
Oh, yeah. Just, if you work hard enough and your parents die at the right time.
Yeah. Fuck it.
You are going to be running it. But I think it was really important because it meant that you couldn't be enchanted by the system anymore.
Yeah.
Because some people, if you get bought into it, you go, all right, well, I'm doing well. That must mean everyone else is. I think because I was like, oh, I've graduated into the worst jobs market in like living memory. It tells you something about the truth. You learn the truth the hard way.
Yeah. That's facts.
What about like your community, like the hub of your youth club, which is so brilliant? Like it's generation thing, man. Like I know people,
it's incredible.
Our elders who went there, and it's become like this hub for like outspread, isn't it?
I think the people that still do well, obviously both Carols.
Yeah.
Like these lot should be like mayors of our era because they not even people that are older than me still see Carol and still might go for some advice just through anything. And I don't think there's certain areas that don't have like pivotal people within the area.
There's just anchors, isn't it? It's like a drop-in place. It's like we trust this system. Yeah. We trust this building way more than any policeman, any politician, any other person to go in and like give us strength.
And that's because of how much they've done for the community as a whole.
It's also because they'll see those young people coming in the fullness of their humanity.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, when you're younger, you kind of like your conditioning and the conditions around you shape you later. Like your kids, they're both 12, right? 11 and 12?
Yeah. 11.
Yeah, 11, 12. And they've still got these like,
of course.
They're not conditioned yet, and it's so beautiful to see. And we know it's coming. And we've both got our techniques to try and guide that. But that youth thing, that really is like, it's the innocence, as you may say, is a beautiful thing that you can witness, but then you're seeing where it goes to.
Of course. And youth, as we said before, youth clubs do have a big part in how they grow as well. Just on how they deal with situations that might actually come across within living in the area. Because obviously if you don't know how to deal with it, you could react and could allow you to end up in a very bad situation.
Yeah, and that's one of the duties of you lot, right?
Of course.
So you're closing these down, more problems. Ash, I
was going to ask, like, when it comes to your own kid, do you ever feel a conflict between, okay, they have to find things out by themselves and I've got to trust that they'll take the lessons I've imparted to them and they'll handle themselves well, and just a desire to like cotton wool them up and protect them from everything?
I feel like it's 50-50 because I know by me growing up myself, I know that I could tell him something, but he could end up in a situation where what I've told him is going to go in one ear and out the other. So it just depends on how he thinks. I could cuddle him and protect him and get him a cab there and there and back, but there is like a little percentage of me that wants him to experience some form of it. Because obviously, if you don't, then I don't know. I just want him to go through some of it, but then still health and safety at the same time. Because I think going through it will also help build character, build personality, and help him to overcome other situations. But then again, I don't want to see him get hurt. I don't want him to deal with different situations. So it's like 50-50.
I'm in the exact same position.
You know what I mean? It's like,
because
have fun.
Because
but, you know,
outside's mad.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's never been madder. I mean, I've only been here 40 years, but from what I'm told, and for people like yourself who have been through communities where it has really evidently grown, like you said, you can't. Even yesterday, he went out with his mate, and I was like, okay, he's out for an hour. I've just got to let him do it. If something mad happens, then this is all part of the journey, all that type of stuff. Yeah. But then it's like, again, it's like they've got to be able to live in a world that is dynamic.
I don't know how you guys do it, because when my cat is out of the house for too long, I feel like I'm about to have like an anxiety attack. Look, let alone look at
you know what it is, Ash? It's not like one day they're a baby and then they're in the park. It slowly happens. So they start to walk to the shop by themselves, then they go to the park. But then this brings me on to my next point about like the privately educated lot, right? Our children are from the community. They navigate through all types of people. My son's best mate, one of them's an Arab and one of them's a Jew. It's beautiful. There's no conditioning, they're bedrooms, right? You grow up, all these conditions happen, you get down, you understand other cultures because you're alongside them.
Exactly.
Right? Different class systems intertwined, particularly in London. The privately educated traditionally stay in their own pocket of society.
I tell you something, boarding school especially, I think is a form of child abuse.
Right.
Because, you know, growing up, things weren't always perfect, but I knew where home was. I knew that my mum loved me. and that whenever I got in over my head with anything, that she would want to know and that she'd come and get me, or I'd go home or something like that. Whereas the kids who are sent to boarding school, one, like some of them go as young as the age of 8.
So it starts from 8.
Right. Some go at 8, some go from 11. At that age, they're trying to be a bit independent of their parent, but they still need to come running back, right?
At 8, of course.
You get thrown into a world which has got like a huge amount of bullying and cruelty. I mean, I've interviewed people who went to those elite boarding schools, and the level of trauma that they have is comparable to kids who've gone through the care system sometimes.
I can imagine.
Except the difference between the care system and, Eton is that you've paid hundreds of thousands of pounds to send your kid to the child abuse factory. Whereas, at least this one's on the taxpayers' side. Some of the stories I've heard are like at such a level of extremity in terms of the impact of the lack of love or the impact of the abuse, the impact of that kind of daily social cruelty, that what it then produced in the young adults who come out of those institutions were forms of substance abuse, dysfunctional behaviours, mental health issues, which again, I can only compare to people who've been through the care system.
But the difference is these people from Eton go and run the government.
Yeah, so you've got like a whole cohort of people who are like, sorry to put it crudely, but fucked in the head, running the country.
Keir Starmer, big up yourself.
It's so...
No, it is. It's mad. It's totally mad. I mean, the music biz is full of that energy at the top of the triangle. Yeah. And when I come down here for the first time and mingled in that world, it blew my mind. Because I think Sheffield's only got one boarding school on it, that private school. Yeah. It's got one in all city, innit? Yeah. So it was like, it was very
Yeah, you've got to go to Harrogate for that kind of thing.
Yeah, some business. So it was like, it was just like, no one went there, just not what you did. But down here, it was like, everyone's been to this place and space. But then again, that's my point about, back to, I guess, point A of like, you creating your own platform, what you do for the community, what this room does. It's like these mini hubs, right? Rather than the giant colliding to try and counteract the giant.
Of course.
100%. And I think that is something that's coming out of society and young people. I know I keep going about young people more than ever. And I rate like watching it from an outsider because I'm not in youth culture like I was. These different characters popping up from communities, but like it feels like a rally of them all together that if they unify can be really bloody strong.
I think and I feel this relates to the youth club point as well, is that like, I really believe that individuals can do a lot, but what you need are organisations and institutions because individuals are vulnerable. We get burnt out, we make mistakes, we get hit by buses, right? And then suddenly, this person who you relied on to do all these things, they're gone.
Yeah.
Whereas if you can build an organisation, a space, an institution, this thing lives. And I think it's really important for when we're thinking about Novara Media, what we wanted it to be, is that we didn't want it to just like pop out these like social media faces who again can make mistakes, they get bored, get hit by buses, whatever. Wanted to build this thing where it meant that people can, enter into it, get trained up, go off and do other things, come back, and it will live beyond our lifetimes, I hope. And I think that when it comes to youth clubs, that's what people wanted it to be. They didn't want it to just be a service, right? You come, you take, you go away. It's like an organ, like a heart in a community.
Big time.
100%.
That's what the Carols do, innit? Yeah. So the guy that runs the youth club, they opened it was Carol.
Carol.
And the person who currently runs it, is Carol.
Carol.
So it's the Carols.
The Carols.
The Christmas Carols. The Carols of love.
The Carols of love.
Ash.
Right.
Thank you.
So
Thanks
nice
for everything you're doing,
So nice to
Legend.
meet you.
Remember, tell them exactly where your thing is.
Novara Media. If you want to support our work, you can go to novara.media/support. You can find me on Twitter less and less because
it's a
on Instagram. Oh, and I wrote a book.
What? Is it out?
Yeah.
What? I didn't even know. What's the book called?
It's called Minority Rule.
Brilliant. That's the next one.
You know what my job was before journalism?
What?
I used to go to write books for rappers. I'll tell you about it when the cameras are off.
Right, okay. Podcast 2 coming soon with Ash. Deli OneFourz, he lives here, you know the vibe. Love and respect. Steeze Factory says, yeah! No way. Whose book did you write?
I did.